Hi everyone, welcome back to another video. Sorry it took me so long to make a second one after all these new DPRE and music videos came out. I wanted to make sure everything was released for this era before uploading a theory prematurely and missing crucial content. If you have not seen the first video I released, please watch that first or else this will not make sense. Thank you for all the support on the last video as well, and without further ado, let's get into this theory. For a small recap, Christian Yu has bipolar disorder and dissociative identity disorder. He creates art from his struggles, bringing us to these wonderfully articulated music videos. I also want to mention that I don't have time to watch all of Christian's Instagram lives, so I might miss out on some information, but I still hope I do okay without it. Someone on my last video commented asking me if Mr. Insanity is still that person in the end of the Maito movies, since now we get to see his full appearance, and my answer is still yes, because it seems like he changes his appearance a lot and is normally associated with multicolored things. Also, keep in mind that Christian is combining the belief of gods from different ideologies, as there's a very biblical aspect to Mr. Insanity and Maito, but also hints at Greek mythology. Let's start with Peanut Butter and Tears, as I believe that this is actually the beginning of the entire lore. This music video is a representation of how many people can develop DID. Dissociative identity disorder. They go through a very traumatic experience when they are very young, and their brain creates an identity to help them cope. I'm not a mental health specialist, so if you want to learn more, I suggest doing your own research. But this is a very simple explanation of this disorder just to help you understand the story behind this music video. As we can see, there's a child here going through something traumatic and scary. Imagery changes between Mr. Insanity, creating a new world and identity for Ian. He's showing his experience with this disorder and creating a world from it for his storylines behind the music videos. The identity has materialized itself into the other side. The ending of this video shows a painting of a falling man surrounded by keys, and a wolf-like hand, which is Mr. Insanity grabbing one off a hook. If you remember from the last video, paintings are shown a lot to help Ian remember glimpses of memories that his alters may have experienced. The key is not the one used to open the door in So I Danced, so I'm not sure what this signifies yet, or if we have seen it, so I'm excited to see if this is hinting to what's next. If you have any theories on this, please comment below. Limbo. If not the most important music video to the storyline, it was definitely the one worth waiting 5 months for. There are many different ways to describe Limbo. The way I like to describe it is almost like purgatory, a place between heaven and hell where there is no start or finish, where time stands still and still moves forward altogether. One of my favorite movies of all time is Inception, where the main character infiltrates the minds of influential people to get the secret information buried within their subconscious. They do this by entering a dream within a dream, but if they go too far, then they end up in limbo. Nothing there is real, but it feels like reality, causing a person to lose their mind there if they are left for too long. The Limbo music video uses a quote from the Gothic poet Edgar Allan Poe. "I was never insane except upon occasions when my heart was touched." This quote from The Raven was about the loss of a partner named Lenore. He couldn't handle the sadness of losing her, causing him to lose his mind, and the Raven begins to speak to him. The story of these lyrics are someone who is in so much pain from a loss, he believes he should be thrown to the wolf, and if he dies, then they can finally be together again. He speaks of ravens, referencing to the poem. I'm wondering if this means Ian or Mr. Insanity experienced a loss so hard that it caused Mr. Insanity to go insane. The lyrics read, "I took you out of my existence only to crawl back into your arms, knowing how much it would take away, or knowing how much it would make me insane." But who is he talking to? I believe that this is in response to the letter in Dear Insanity music visualizer. The letter reads, "Dear Insanity, if you are reading this, we have ventured too far into our minds, and everything that we thought was a dream is now real, even the nightmares. My time is running out, but yours has just begun. But don't worry, I'll find a way to come back. I always do. Yours truly, Maito." To go back to my Inception spiel, remember how I mentioned that in order to get information from inside of a human's subconscious, they must go deep into a person's mind through their dreams? Ian's alters are buried within his subconscious, but now they have the power to come to the surface. The letter says, "The dreams are now real, even the nightmares." The music video, Mr. Insanity says, "Is this really a dream?" A very big storyline in Inception was where the main character lost his wife because she was stuck in limbo with him for 50 years. When they came out, she couldn't figure out whether she was in reality, so she thought that ending herself would bring her out of it, but in truth, she was in the real world. But like I was, you might be confused, because Maito and Mr. Insanity are not allies. So why would Maito be rooting for Mr. Insanity, and why would Mr. Insanity be sad? This next point I make is something I will bring up again later as well, but this may have been a letter from before Maito's downfall, meaning before Maito began to mess with Ian in the first era. In the Bible, Lucifer was once a beautiful angel, but when he fell, he turned into Satan. So for now, just keep that in mind. But I believe here, Mr. Insanity was losing his creation, which, as we learned in the last theory video, Maito is Mr. Insanity's creation, which made him feel this grief. And perhaps this fall that Maito experienced caused him to completely change his outlook on Mr. Insanity to the point where Mr. Insanity does not recognize him anymore, which, like I said, will come up later. And this may also be before his eye turned white. We do know that Maito wants Mr. Insanity's power, as in the Maito movie he says, "You created me in your image, and now it's time to create mine in yours." I'm also going to guess that time moves differently in this world, as it did in the movie. If the characters were in a dream for a couple of weeks, in reality, it would only be a couple minutes on the surface.
Sorry, maths was never my strong subject. How much time is that?
It's a week, the first level down. 6 months, the second level down, and the third level.
It's 10 years. Who would want to be stuck in a dream for 10 years?
Depends on the dream.
Don't go insane. We see Mr. Insanity playing a piano and Maito, before losing his eye, sitting at a desk writing a letter. This is the letter from the visualizer. We see Mr. Insanity's outfit has changed into something a bit more wacky, showing he has become more insane. Basically, we have a fully insane werewolf god fighting a one-eyed raven Lucifer. He is pulled out of limbo into a graveyard by a green hand. Christians said that he was actually pulled out from a grave, almost like giving birth of insanity into this world. To think of it in the sense of inception, he woke up from limbo, bringing him to a closer consciousness to Ian. He was brought into the other side. And as confirmed by the interview by Say What, they talked about how when Mr. Insanity comes out of this layer of limbo, he doesn't remember himself as Insanity. Which is why later on, something I will get deeper into, he puts the wig on to then become a further version of Insanity. There are dancers with umbrellas like there were in Limbo. Their umbrellas turn into pitchforks and he is strung up to a cross with twigs surrounding him, basically getting ready to be burned at the stake. The Green Man helps Mr. Insanity escape. They jump off a train and end up in a desert. This also looks like the desert that we get to see in the Maito movie where Ian gets kidnapped. They point to a door that we see in Don't Go Insane teaser. In the teaser video, Mr. Insanity and the Green walk up to the door and it doesn't open, so they realize that they must go and get a key, but they don't know where to start. They hear the voice of a crow/raven say, "You need the key." Maito controls the crows/ravens. As we've seen, he has a very visualistic identity that looks like a raven, and it goes back to Edgar Allan Poe's raven dialogue in the poem. This makes me believe that this entire thing was set up by Maito. They see these two men who tell them that they need to go to the city to find the key, but someone is waiting for them, and they must wear a disguise before they go. They get into a fight and do not elaborate on who that someone is. Mr. Insanity and the Green steal the two men's van. I want to mention this now that we have no idea how much time has passed since Limbo, and at this point, like I said, time moves differently, so I think that it's being used in what we see as minutes of a music video to years of storyline in the actual story, if that makes sense. Once they are in the city, you can see that Mr. Insanity is in an apartment hiding out and planning out the heist with the Green. It is very cartoony and not serious. It has a very playful aspect to it, which is very different from when Maito was the lead character. I think this shows that Mr. Insanity believes that there is no consequence in this universe until he comes face to face with his own creation, Maito. While robbing the bank, they set off an alarm and a man comes out, guns blazing. They hop in their cars and enter a high-speed chase. The sign says that they are leaving Emerald City, and if you don't know what Emerald City is, it is the city in Wizard of Oz that Dorothy and the others must go to in order to speak to the wizard, who is basically known as the higher power. I'm not sure who the higher power is in this universe, but maybe we will see later on. They also had a little dog named Toto that would go on the adventure with them. I think we see that here with the poodle. I didn't realize this until now, but after Mood in the Maito movie, it looks like Ian is on a farmhouse as Maito starts a tornado outside. Like how Dorothy gets transported to Oz, he's then covered in red, which I think represents the ruby slippers that Dorothy uses to get back home. In this case, it's backwards. Maito transported himself to Ian to take control of Ian's body for Ribbon. While Mr. Insanity and the Green are in the city, the Green discovers a doll that he compares to Mr. Insanity since him and Maito take the same appearance, and it is Maito's ribbon outfit. I think that this is used to show that these two things are happening at the same time. Like when Mr. Insanity and the Green were planning the heist, Ian was being confronted with Maito. This theory is further proven as Ian just released Don't Go Insane Maito version official visualizer, as it shows Maito's point of view at the time that Don't Go Insane was happening. He is in the same house from the Maito movie where we last saw Ian. Ian is bleeding from the stab wound that we saw him get right before Maito takes control of his body in ribbon. And we see Maito with the wanted poster that Ian passed by in the house, leading me to question, if Maito is hunting Mr. Insanity, then who is hunting down Maito? Is it the higher power from Emerald City? Only time will tell. We can also see that they are driving over the Golden Gate Bridge to represent the yellow brick road. We find out that Maito is the gunman. I got a really good question on my last video, which is, if Mr. Insanity created Maito, then why does Mr. Insanity say, oh, so that's Maito? Which brings me back to what I said about Lucifer earlier. I believe this is because Mr. Insanity was creating different beings, as I mentioned in the last video, and didn't think they would ever turn against him. So maybe he never met them before and only ever communicated through letters. But still, the loss of Maito in the beginning was enough to send him into further insanity. In the Bible, Lucifer was a very beautiful angel before he fell and turned into Satan. So a lot of manipulation may have happened, making him unrecognizable to who he was before, like his white eye and different demeanor. Just like how after being casted out, Lucifer could change his appearance to manipulate anyone he wanted to, like the snake in the Garden of Eden. And remember when I mentioned before that him going up a level in the consciousness causes him to lose his memory of his last one? Maybe he forgot what Maito looked like, or even who he was. Maito knows what Mr. Insanity looks like, he knows what his creator looks like, and that's why those two men in the teaser told Mr. Insanity that he must wear a disguise before going into the city. Maybe Maito wants revenge for what happened to him in Limbo and to his eye, or just to gain power, like I said earlier. Confirmed also during the Say What interview, we now know that this door that Mr. Insanity is trying to get through leads to past trauma. Maito is trying to get Ian and Mr. Insanity to stop trying to open the door. Mr. Insanity wants to keep going up in consciousness, and I think this door leads him to what he looks like now, which is multicolored being and much more powerful. So every time he goes through a door, he gets more powerful, but he also forgets who he was in the past consciousness. I think this could also mean that since he was the last person who was in possession of that van, he may have kidnapped Ian in the Maito movie and brought him to that house so that Ian could go through the next door. And that's why Maito was there, to stop Ian from entering and looking at that past trauma. Maito had set up this whole plan to get Mr. Insanity into the city and stop him from getting to the next door, but as we saw, that didn't work out for him. Back to the storyline. Once the two get back to the door after they supposedly have the key, the Green says they lied to us, referencing the two men in the teaser, when him and Mr. Insanity are looking through a box they stole from the vault. But turns out the key was just under all the muffins, but Maito is right behind them. They begin to run towards the door. Maito starts another tornado. The Green and Mr. Insanity make it to the door, but we don't get to see what's next. At the end of the music video, we see the poodle from earlier still at the bank with red lights around it as its eyes flash green and pink. Then cuts to Maito immediately, where he is surrounded by green light and his eyes flash pink as well. There was also a sign that had a green eye for Emerald City, showing that Maito has eyes everywhere. Just to recap everything we saw from this era, we see Ian walk through a door that holds past trauma as a child. His trauma causes him to develop DID and bring forth an alter named Mr. Insanity. Mr. Insanity and Maito are stuck in limbo deep inside Ian's subconscious while experiencing a painful loss. This loss causes Mr. Insanity to go more insane. He's pulled out and brought into the other side by the Green. He forgot who he was before by going up a level of consciousness, and to gain more power he must go through the door. Meanwhile, Maito is causing his own version of the Wizard of Oz with Ian. Since the door doesn't open, a raven who is controlled by Maito tells him they need the key. These two men tell him to go to Emerald City in a disguise, and someone, Maito, is waiting for him. By putting on the wig, he gets wackier and closer to full insanity. While Mr. Insanity and the Green are planning a heist for the key, Maito is still recreating the Wizard of Oz with Ian. Mr. Insanity, the Green, and the poodle, goes to the vault and grabs the case, but not before Maito shows up to stop them. After recreating the Fast and Furious, they go back to the door with the key, as Maito is hot on their trails. The end. I'm very excited to see where the story continues, and I want to thank Christian for making such an in-depth, artsy representation of mental health issues, and I really enjoy everything he releases and how much he thinks about what goes into making music videos and the stories alongside them. I love that he is such a relatable artist for many people and appreciate everything he does, showing his deepest emotions. Thank you once again for watching this video, and all the support on the last video was actually insane. Normally the second part videos don't get as much support as the first ones do, so I'm hoping there was still some people kind of waiting around even though it took me a long time, but I do hope that maybe if there was anything that was confusing that this did help. But yes, thanks again, and hopefully I'll get to make another video on Ian.